The wheel of time turns and ages come and pass. Books become audio and then they come to life on Prime, and the world remembers that there are no beginnings or endings to the wheel of time, but our characters have a beginning and an ending in season 3 because it brings us a new turning of the wheel. And a wind blew all of our characters into Tarvalon together to start the season off. But today we are going to focus in on Nynaeve, and I have my fantastic friend Nynaeve Nimkins to help me do some serious but fun enjoying about Nynaeve, and this is spoiler free. What we're going to do this time is record the spoiler full section as a separate video. So if you've not read the books, you can watch this all the way through to the end. So great to see you, Nimkins. How are you this
Oh,
week?
so good to be back. Stressed out. I'm very stressed. It's the end of college, so as you can imagine, last minute wanting to stick my head in the sand and hope my final assignment would go away. But thankfully, I get to do this show with you tonight, and that's a lovely respite in between the toils of studying and writing my final assignment. And how was your week? All good?
My week was less wet than it has been. So I did actually get outside and do some stuff, and I always feel so much better if I totally wear myself out getting stuff done outside. And it's been so wet outside is scary.
Well, we've had the opposite. We've been in drought for like the last 6 weeks, and we're finally about to get some rain tomorrow. So bring it on.
Oh, I hope
Um,
so.
so shall we get this ball rolling and start recapping where Nynaeve was at the end of last season and coming into season three?
Yes,
Um,
please refresh
bring
our
it.
memories on our
Yes.
girl Nynaeve.
So our wonderful queen, that is Nynaeve, spent last season firstly fighting with herself and having the one power in the tower before getting the opportunity to go through the arches, which ended up being an extremely traumatic event for her, and the main catalyst, I believe, for her block. So as the season progressed, we saw her head to Falm, um, go through the ways with Leandrin and Elayne and Egwene, and Egwene captured, of course, by this Shanchan, and Nynaeve and Elayne went incognito in the Falm to try and find a way to rescue Egwene, which also included taking taking down the Shanchan. What do you call them? My brain's gone. Not the Damane, the other one.
The Suldam.
The Sul'dam, sorry. Can't help my brain. The
Words are
Sul'dam.
hard.
No. Um, the Sul'dam so that they can try and infiltrate the tower. Unfortunately, Nynaeve is struggling with her power. She's unable to really embrace it, and the one time that she does manage to get something out, she accidentally puts a bit too much into unlocking the collar, which unfortunately is triggers some Suldams and the Mane to come search them out, and the Rima, the incredible Rima, getting captured, which creates more guilt for Nynaeve, who really doesn't need it at this point. She's already going through an awful lot of PTSD from her Archer's experience. So by the end of the season, she's having to be more dependent on everybody else, especially Elayne, who ends up having to take over healing abilities for on her behalf because she can't do it. So when we come into season three, we've got this very vulnerable Nynaeve. This Nynaeve that is suddenly realizing that she really needs to get to grip with her power, but she can't get to grip with her power because she's blocked. She needs to find a way. So when we're seeing the start of season three, the incredible episode one, Nynaeve is so vulnerable that she's not the same strong character we saw in season one. She is very contained within herself. She's very subdued. She is hurting an awful lot. So it's interesting to see how her character has developed within those last two seasons and to the point that we're at when we get to season three. She's still that strong. Wisdom of the Two Rivers, who obviously will always be there for her little Edmund Field 4, as they technically are to her family. And she knows when they need her, and clearly Matt needs her. So when we get the Grey Man attack, and she's unable to defend herself, and Matt's completely lost in his head on looking at the game, the cards coming to life, and she gets stabbed, she has no control. She can't fight back. She's at the essence of her vulnerability at this point in time. So by the end of episode one, Nynaeve has made the hard decision that she's going to stay behind in the tower, which means that she will no longer be able to join Rand and Moiraine and co on their adventures to she doesn't know where at this point. Um, and the decision gets her decision also influences Matt because Matt thinks and believes that she's the only person who can help her or help him, sorry. And because of her decision to stay, he decides to stay as well. So it just shows that even though she's feeling so vulnerable and she's feeling not her normal self, that somebody still believes in her enough that they will also not stick around with the rest of the friends and go where everybody else is going, that they will stay and support, not just get support from her, but also support her in return. Because Matt probably realizes and knows that she also needs a friend. So her journey through season three ends up being a journey within that starts off with the White Tower. She's obviously there. If we go look back on episode one, she's obviously there as a witness and the most important witness as well at Leandrin's unexpected trial. Leandrin thinking she's getting pulled in for one thing and was realizing pretty quickly that she's been caught out. She's got no leg to stand on anymore in the White Tower, and that they know that she's a Dark Friend and a member of the Black Ajah. And Nynaeve is one of the main instigators as witness to the fall of Leandrin, which obviously in turn ends up with the epic White Tower battle, where unfortunately, because once again Nynaeve is defenseless, she can't get her power to work.
Yeah.
She gets knocked out and she can't participate in the battle. So it's probably slightly a good thing that she gets knocked out and buried under some pillars, because who would have known what would have happened if Leandra would have gotten her hands on her. So, it might not have been a nice way to get crumbles, but it was better than being assassinated by Black Ajah. Um, so again, that's her vulnerability coming in, and then later, as the season progresses, we start to see her in the White Tower trying to become involved, and she ends up being a bit of a spy for and a Sherlock Holmes like character for Shuan, with her Dr. Watson being Elayne. And they try to investigate the Black Ajah within the tower to see if they can find out not only where the ones that had been involved in the tower um, coup, not coup, tower battle had gone to, but also if there were any more Black Ajah still left within the tower, which is a very daunting prospect because anyone could end up being Black Ajah. And
Mm-hmm.
when you have Shuan, who is the Amerlin seat of the tower, telling you and Elayne that you're basically the only two people she can trust. She can't even trust her sisters. She can't trust Lyanna. She can't trust Baron. That's a very, very daunting position to be in, and it's not a weight on one's shoulders. But my niece seems to really take to it. She seems to really want to get in and find out who they are and what's going on. And the revelation comes to herself and Elayne that the Black Ajah have gone to Tanchico because they've discovered a death ritual symbol um, under the bed in what was Leandrin's son Eludrin's home. And from a little research in the Brown Ajah's quarters, they discover that there has to be two halves to this ritual, and as it's a Tanchico ritual, and Leandrin's more than likely from Tanchico, that is probably where the Black Ajah has gone to. So that sets the wheels in motions, or the sails with the winds, as the case may be, for the little Scooby Gang to head to Tanchico, and that includes Matt and Min in the foray, although they don't realise Min's with them until they're actually already on the ship. And Tanchico becomes this quite adventure of a different culture, and she un she becomes so relaxed with herself. She gets a bit drunk with Min and lets her hair down and enjoys herself, and something she's not done in a very long time, probably not since before she was a wisdom. And we see different sides to her there as well. And then there's Nynaeve and Elayne and the compulsion with Morgedian, which was so brilliantly done, I must say. It was just fabulously done. And there's something else there. The stubbornness, the little cracks of stubbornness within
Mm-hmm.
I need starts to show because she's actually fighting against Morgedian's compulsion. And Morgedian points it out to her, you're fighting me. And you can see the tension in her face, and that tension, because Nynaeve's strength is there. It's trying to come out. It's trying to gain control, because that's what she's been trying to do the whole episode, is gain control. And the crack is there. The sign is there that something is happening and something is about to happen. So they go to the Panarchist Palace, which is a bit of a warren of artifacts just strewn around the place. And it looks quite abandoned. And having discovered the collar half of male Adam, having just lost his second wristband to Mogedian during the compulsion scene, please skip that bit. Um, she discovers the male collar, which unfortunately Leandrin can hear. So when she goes outside and she's waiting for the rest to show up and she's anticipating them, Leandrin's listened. So she has followed the sound because she's got the wrist supports on, the armbands on. She's she can hear it, so she's just following it all the way outside and discovering Nynaeve with it in a bag.
Mm-hmm.
Nynaeve is a bit startled by this presence of Leandrin suddenly, because she thinks she's gotten away from her.
Yeah.
Oh, she totally does.
Oh, totally.
um, so she's in a confrontation. She still thinks there's humanity to Leandrin, that Leandrin can be saved. But it's clear from Leandrin's response, she doesn't want to be saved. She has no
Mm-hmm.
intention to be saved. And that Nynaeve's flaw of thinking the best and seeing the best in everybody really comes to head here, because I think this is the cataclysm moment of the tension between the two of these characters. And the fact that Leandrin proves to her that no, she's not a good person. It's practically time for Nynaeve to give it over, as we'd say in Dublin, and to stop trying to change her. She takes the collar and she basically flings Nynaeve into the bay of Tanchico, claiming to have that she will be the one to have killed the strongest channeler in 1,000 years, which is a big, great throwback to season 1 and
Yep,
or
yep.
season 2. Sorry, and all the comments about the greatest channeler in 1,000 years. But Nynaeve is struggling. She's underwater. She's chained. She's struggling to breathe. And she has this moment where Elsnor, her daughter from her experience in the Arches, comes into her vision. And it's the moment where she is basically telling her to be brave and to take control. And Nynaeve realizes at that moment the only way she can take control is if she allows it. And you see it, the moment on her face, and then suddenly there's a great
Yep.
blast of power, and she's released her power. She's broken the chains. It's very metaphorical. She's broken the chains that
Very
are holding
biblical.
her bonds, and that are is holding the bonds of her magic back.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And she's released it. She's free. And then she parts the waves, and she goes up, walks through very, you know, Moses like, up
Mm-hmm,
on
mm-hmm.
back up to the side, and you can just see the euphoria in her face at the feeling of finally accepting every part of her, stopping the fighting she's been having inside, allowing herself to take control of her power and being free. And it's one of the most amazing scenes in the whole season between Nynaeve. So the last scene is her on the boat heading off to the sunset.
Into the sunset, yeah. With the gathering storm.
The gathering storm, of course.
Yes, yes, yeah. So this is completely spoiler free, and I'm saying that to remind myself because we will talk further about all of this in the full spoiler thing. But I'm really interested in one of the comments that you made right back at the beginning, which was that going through the arches in Tarvalon to do her accepted test was the cause of her block. So I have not thought about it that way. So I'd love to know, and because this is pure show law, and so I'd love to know. Um, you don't think she was blocked before then, or
I
just
think
yeah,
she
tease
just
that out a
didn't
little bit.
want to. I think she just didn't want it to the point that she wouldn't, or and it slightly held her back. But I think the post-traumatic stress that she experienced while in the arches was the real moment that held her back, because it created that fear, that absolute fear of the power and what the power can do. Because if you look at the ter'angreals and the fact that somebody with the one power created those and created
Mm-hmm.
a space where you could end up being so traumatized, why
Mm.
would you want to embrace that power when that power could do so much hurt? And Nynaeve's not the type of person who wants to hurt people.
For
She's an
sure.
empath. She's a kind person.
Mm. Mm. Mm.
She is a nurturer. She is the wisdom. So I think that was a very, in my opinion, was a very big cataclysmic moment in
Mm.
her for her development as an Aes Sedai. And I think it was the real case of where she became fully blocked and couldn't really do anything. The
Right.
fear, there was too much fear there.
Okay. Yeah, that's really interesting because my interpretation watching this show was that it was the battle at the end of season one when she was linked and she watched all of those women burn out
Mm.
and the destruction that they were able to wreak on all of those Trollocs. Um, because I remember in early season two when Alana was doing that teaching in the kitchen,
The water.
and Nynaeve said nobody should have that much power. And so
Hmm.
my head
True.
had
Yeah,
attributed her
true.
block back to that
That
experience
moment.
that
Yeah.
because she knew what she did in at the end of episode 4 in season 1 when she did the Super Saiyan, you get
Yeah.
healed, you get healed, you get healed. But then she had the other side of it, the side of it of using it to kill. Because remember, she didn't see a lot of what Moraine did on Winter's Night because
No.
she saw a little bit and then she got dragged off by the Trolloc and was in the cave having her own adventure, while most of that was happening. Um, and because I found it really interesting that when she was in the Archers, in the third one, and she had Elnor, and the Trollocs were attacking, and she did another Super Saiyan moment when Lan again was dying, that she didn't heal. She killed. And that
Yeah.
felt to me that it really called to the PTSD that she had from the
Mhm.
battle, that the only thing I can do with this power is destroy. And that was kind of some of that post traumatic stress that she was carrying, and now she'd reinforced in the Archers because she
Yeah.
didn't she
I
didn't
get that.
save Lan. Because I'm looking at it going, you can heal this,
Didn't save
you
any of
know.
them, and then her daughter was gone. She got through the arch, and there was no child, and that was so traumatic for her. So, like, I
Yeah,
agree that
yeah,
she
it's
had
just
some
stack,
trauma
stack,
coming into
stack.
season two, absolutely, and I think that's more what we see through her animosity at the beginning of season two. But with the arches, it brings out a different type of trauma. It's
It
proper
really did, yeah.
post-traumatic stress, and it has a deep, deep resonating pain in her that when she's finally and accepted, she feels that nobody understands how she's feeling because
Mm.
everybody's dismissing it as if, oh, that's just what happens in the art, just leave it be, it's not important.
It wasn't
But
real.
for her, it was real. And she
Exactly,
lost everything.
exactly.
Her husband, she lost her child, she lost her friend, Matt. She'd lost her parents in the
Mm-hmm.
first start all over again. So the repetitiveness of that and the additions of other traumas was just too much for her, and I think that's what really solidified the block for her and made it even harder so that when she did want to try and use her powers, she just couldn't. I think at first she just didn't want to because she didn't believe. But this way around, when she wanted to, she couldn't because she too much fear built up inside of her. She couldn't allow herself to do it.
Yeah. 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 It was interesting when she did the little, tried to do the little tiniest bit of a flow channel with Roma. And so I felt that we got a really good way of seeing the difference between somebody who was stilled, shielded, and blocked.
Mm-hmm.
That
Absolutely.
Nynaeve could touch the source. It was, this something that was making it really difficult to, rather than the block didn't have her completely cut off. But, wow, the control of it has
Yeah.
been pretty bad because of that block. But it was really good to see those three situations of being stilled, never touch it again, shielded, something is totally preventing you, and blocked, you're
Mm-hmm.
occasionally you do suddenly do something huge. Yeah. And that was a huge, basically that was Nynaeve's arc this season. Would you agree?
Well, absolutely. Her arc was definitely about regaining control and her vulnerability. So, and I think they really portrayed it very well in her performance. She she just comes. Oh, she's just a brilliant actress. Nobody else could have done that as well as she did. Um, and I think they really brought it out. And the fact that you could see that euphoric moment on her face at the end,
Mm-hmm.
perfect.
The
Because you
facial
just know
acting
she has it.
in this show, is so brilliant. Like when she was with Magedian, the
God,
way she was able to mix absolute adoration with "I am not fucking giving this to you" is
you could
not
see
something
God,
that every actor could, pull off. It was
absolutely.
the
The
way.
eyes said one thing, the jaw said something else. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like moving. She was not just one expression. You could see that she's trying to get through, and then she's being pushed back, and she's still trying, so there was like that little bit of sort of movement in what was happening on her face, with Magedian, going from he to, holding Elayne's hair like, "I really hate the two of you, but I'm going to pretend to be nice because and so you've got that kind of happening with Nynaeve's facial, acting,
Yeah.
and I get a feeling it might not be over between those two yet, and
Oh, there
and
was
a,
there was connection there. You could see something with Moghetti, and it was like she had this moment of, oh, hello.
mm-hmm.
Like she was very, very interested in her. It, Nynaeve just made her stop and think, you know. And
Mm.
as they say, not everybody gets away from Moghedian when they've met Moghedian, but the two of them did.
Yeah,
So,
she's not used to anybody
mm,
even getting, that far, and that was another beautiful part of showing what was happening with Nynaeve, because that had nothing to do with the one power. Nynaeve was not trying to break that compulsion by attempting to channel, because she didn't have a clue what was going on. That was the pure strength of will that is Nynaeve, our mirror, that was playing through. So we got a really good look at, both sides of Nynaeve, at the person she is. And you mentioned how Matt really brought that out as well. Matt turned and put his trust back in the wisdom from his village. So we were getting, these two, almost opposing sides of Nynaeve, which was the strength of the person she is and the
Hmm.
vulnerability that she is also carrying, giving us a really well rounded out person. I'll be really interested to know from any show watchers that are watching this that haven't read the books, who might like to comment below how they see Nynaeve in all the seasons, but particularly in what happened with her during season 3, because I'm finding that really interesting. I'm talking to a few show only people, and it's really interesting to see how they're perceiving Nynaeve, because it's like being back at the beginning without knowing where her arc goes. You can
Yes, exactly.
only judge, not judge Nynaeve, but you can only judge where her character is at by what you've seen so far. So I'd be really interested to see how that goes. Yeah.
And they really did show how complex a character she is in this season, because all those different elements of her personality just become exposed. There's, we see it all. We do see her stubbornness, we do see her compassion, we do see her vulnerability. You know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
she's just, she still remains my all-time favorite character, and I think
Yeah.
even with the show and the way the show is portraying her and the way Zoe is acting the character, it's just 10 out of 10 for me. I don't think they could have gotten a better actress.
Oh,
She's
totally
everything I
agree.
wanted.
And that's where I'm
Yeah.
interested to hear opinions from show watchers, because I love Nynaeve, but I did not always. I did not love Nynaeve from start to finish. Nynaeve probably has quite a few similarities to me, and we don't always like seeing things about ourselves reflected
Yeah.
in somebody, and so I realise, later that that was part of it. Whereas other people have loved Nynaeve from start to finish.
See?
So I'm somebody
Yeah.
who loves Nynaeve's arc, her character, but yeah, it's like, if you don't like things about Nynaeve, please explain it in comments below, because I love to hear, the reasons behind it. Another vulnerable thing we saw about Nynaeve was her being seasick, and that's only a tiny thing, but it was just, there she is yet again being dependent on other people, because she can barely even get up off the floor. And that stunning waves mistress
Oh,
conversation, talking about that, because I like to be someone who plants both my feet on the ground. And so it was really interesting the way she spoke, because I know that if I'm on a motorbike, you've got to be fluid, you've got to go with it.
yeah.
And that's very much like being on the ship, is that you need to be able to go with it. But of course, the whole thing was talking about how she's approaching life, is that if you try to stand too solid, like a rock that's in the middle of a river, standing solid is going to eventually just get completely worn away and be gone,
Yeah. Or a
you
human
know.
being in the middle of the sea chained up. If you
Yeah.
stay too still and you give in, you're not going to
Mhm.
release yourself. But if you
Mhm.
just go with the flow and you accept the movement, you can always find exactly where you need to be, and you can find that inner release.
Definitely. And we saw that at the beginning of season 1, right? The very opening stuff, Nynaeve yeets Egwene off that cliff. She's teaching that exact same thing to Egwene at the very beginning of the whole show, right? relax, go with the river. And
Trust the
we
water,
get
yeah.
in season 3, she's standing on a boat being taught that same lesson again by someone else, and that's such a human thing, right? I can see the problems you're having and help you, but I can't see that I'm actually having the same problems, and someone else is going to see that in me. So yeah, yeah. All right. Anything
Oh,
else about that you can think of about what happened with Nynaeve that doesn't head into spoiler territory? That was a
herself and Lamb
fantastic
again.
recap.
Well, thank you. It was a bit convoluted, to be fair.
Well, her story is convoluted. Yeah, yeah. I think something that occurred to me while you were talking, and this is why talking with other people is so fantastic about the Wheel of Time, because I had things that were like jumping into my head while Nimkins was talking that I hadn't thought about. And it was when she was under the water, and you were talking about how, it was her experience in the Arches with Elnor that she was replaying that helped her come to it. And it was when she asked Elnor, "Do you trust Mummy?" And that was kind of the key thing, was she realized she has to trust herself. And that was a really big thing for Nynaeve that she was having, was that no woman should have this much power, the destruction that could happen. And so she didn't even trust herself. And she has now put that trust in herself. And that was, even though I understood what was happening, that was just that little key line that jumped at me that I thought was really beautiful, was that they were able to bring those experiences in the Arches around to such a full moment for Nynaeve's realization of, you can trust yourself. You're the wisdoms of Eamon Field, of the two
Exactly.
rivers. Pardon me. That is no big spoiler. I'm sure a lot of show watchers know that in the book it was called Eamon's Field. But that was a really big part of it for Nynaeve, was to be able to trust herself. Yeah, beautiful.
And to break the chains. The only way she could break the chains was to trust herself. And that's what I mean. It's
Exactly.
just such a great visual metaphor. The semiotics of it all was just
Yeah.
astounding. I know people criticize the CGI for the actual chains. Like, to be fair, it's a bit iffy what they get put on her. But that doesn't take away from
Yeah.
everything that happened and
Yeah.
her growth, her personal and spiritual growth.
Mm-hmm.
She begins to trust herself, and the only way any of us can come to really understand and move on from trauma is if we learn to trust ourselves. And I think it was a brilliant message to put out there. So
Yeah.
I've got it.
It was great. It was great.
You gonna say hello?
Oh, we do. We've got a very up close kitty. So we are going to now do a deep dive into spoiler territory, but we're going to put it into a whole separate video. So it will be great for book readers to watch this one first, and because we've done the whole recap here, and we'll be able to dig deep into some other stuff. And we are going to come back. I think you're willing to come back and talk other characters with me too.
Absolutely, I'll go through
Yes.
the whole 2,700 and whatever.
Yes.
I don't know what the full figure is.
Terrific. All right.
Oh,
I hope that you enjoyed this. Please do leave comments below, because I love to hear how show only watchers see our characters. And if you have read the books, please don't put spoilers in the comments below. Save them to comment on the full spoiler video. Thanks for watching.
Thanks, guys.